topic today is masturbation. Can you tell me a little bit about why you chose that topic?
Okay, so I have been talking about masturbation for a little while now on social media. Um, I think it's always for me been like one of those activities that I've really kind of had a journey with. And I definitely used to think that it was a shameful thing to do. I used to think, if my neighbors knew what I was doing now, they wouldn't like me. Like, they'd basically hate me and disown me and think that I was dirty and disgusting. I was brought up in a Catholic, so quite a conservative upbringing. And sex and masturbation was never really spoke about when I was younger. And I've just come full circle, and now I embrace it as much as I can. I have two girls who are 7 and 11, and I don't want them to be brought up thinking that something perfectly normal and natural is makes them dirty, and they should be ashamed of it. I think it's really important to normalize it, to talk about it, and take away the stigma from it.
Yeah, for sure. So why do you think that masturbation, in 2020 is still considered such a taboo topic to talk about?
I think it goes back to misogyny. I think it goes back to everything goes back to that. I think it goes back to education. When I did sex ed at school, there was no talk of female masturbation. And I just think anything, women are judged for everything, how they look, what they do, what they say. And everyone's got an opinion on it. And it's really difficult to break out of that shell. But I think, social media has definitely helped women to feel empowered as much as possible when we feel the need to.
Cool. So can I ask if you're comfortable sharing? So what was the turning point for you when you started to kind of unlearn the shame around masturbation that you were kind of brought up with?
I think it was very much tied into my body confidence. And as soon as I started to delve a bit deeper into like beauty standards and the beauty myth and how women are treated in society, like lots of other things started to click into place, and that's definitely where masturbation came into that. And you know, I I found out about my body through other people touching my body, and I think that that was a real missed opportunity. I feel sad about that fact, and I don't want that to be the case for my children. I think, our first relationship should always be with ourselves, and that's going to be emotional, mental, and physical. I think it's a really important thing to do, to get to know your body, what you like, what you don't like, and it will inherently assist you later on in life if you have relationships with other people. Um, I can't remember what the exact turning point was, but I think just the more I got to know my body, the more I practiced it, the better I got at it, the more confident I got all round in just knowing myself better and feeling so much more connected to my body. And that has been such a wonderful and beautiful evolvement.
Well, that statement that you made about getting to know your body through other people, touching it, like that being that first interaction, I feel like that's such a powerful statement, and it's something that so many women, experience. And I've actually never heard it said before. I feel like I'm having a moment. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of
Yeah,
scary. Like that's what happened for me too. Now that I
yeah.
think about it, and
You know what? And I think it happens for, most women. Um, and that's such a shame. I mean, obviously, I did touch myself when I was younger, but I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what I was touching. And it was always done in a very secretive, shameful kind of way, And now I'm like, when I speak to my girls, I'm like, it's absolutely okay to touch yourself, just make sure you do that in your own privacy, but I would really recommend it. And and now they're like, oh mum, please will you stop talking about masturbation? And I'm like, no, it's really important.
yeah, and they're so lucky to have a mom who's openly talking about that. I know that can be a real sticking point for a lot of people in their relationships with their mothers and sexuality and that all those conversations.
Yeah.
But I guess so for women who, have reached adulthood and really are seeing what you're saying, but are kind of like afraid still to explore this part of sexuality, would you have any advice for them?
I would have a lot of advice. First of all, I would say it's absolutely okay and it's natural to want to touch yourself. Um, I would recommend using your hands, first of all, before you use anything else. Just explore yourself with your hands. Use some lubricant and um, just really enjoy getting to know your body and knowing the spots that feel nice and knowing the spots that don't feel nice. Because when you get to know yourself, it really helps in terms of being able to communicate that to other people. So yeah, just enjoy yourself, have fun. And as long as you're doing it in private, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. And listen to good advice. It's really difficult sometimes, with there being so much porn out there, to really trust your own instincts, because sometimes you think that a certain way to act is how everyone's doing it, and it usually isn't. So just really go with your own gut instincts and trust your body.
Yeah, and I can imagine, using a huge vibrator off the gate can be a little bit intimidating, or even like just walking into a sex shop for the first time, or even ordering online or any of those things. But I guess my next question would be if you think it's a fair statement to say that masturbation is really key to having like a great overall sex life.
I don't know if it's absolutely key,
Mhm.
because I'm a very big believer in you do what works for you.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't push anyone to do it if they felt uncomfortable doing it. I would simply say that it's definitely helped me and has definitely improved my sex life. Um, but everyone's different. Some people, I've had messages of people who have said, they don't like the texture and they don't feel, it feels weird touching themselves. And that's okay. I wouldn't ever pressurize somebody to do something that they don't want to. It's simply about exploring yourself, and it's supposed to be fun. Okay, so if you're not having fun, you don't do it. This is all, you're in complete control, and this is all down to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that kind of in our society, sexuality is really kind of pushed by the wayside. And we're not, when we're growing up and we're being told, okay, you want to have a good life and you have to do X, Y, and Z to have that good life. Sexuality isn't in that conversation at all. So do you think that actually sexuality and having, a healthy sex life that you're fulfilled with is really key to having, I guess whatever a quality life is.
No, not necessarily, because
Mhm.
I think that there's some people who don't have any sexual desires, and
Mhm.
I think that's absolutely perfectly okay too. I think sex can enhance your life, especially if it's consensual and it's a loving, safe environment. That's obviously the absolute ideal, and that's not the ideal, that's the minimum standard. Um, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing to have in your life, but not everyone wants it, so it's not key. You spoke about the different sort of milestones that we're kind of brought up to expect, and I have often thought about that, and there's definitely societal standards that kind of go, right, so you go to school, then you go to further education, and then you're going to meet a boy, maybe, and then you're going to get married, and then you're going to have children. I feel like this all needs to be completely abolished and completely rethought. First of all, I hate the fact that the majority of us assume that all of our children are going to be heterosexual. First of all, I think that's a massive assumption, and I really hate that society puts that assumption on children. That's not how I'm going to bring up that's not how I bring up my children. First of all, those kind of key milestones that we tend to congratulate in society are not necessarily what makes us happy. And and that is not a sign of success. So don't think that getting married is going to be your biggest, greatest achievement in the world, because sometimes that doesn't make us happy. And it's just really about finding out what your path is and what fulfills you and your idea of success, and not letting society dictate that to you.
Yeah, for sure. And, I've noticed that you talk a lot about overcoming shame in general. And I feel that, all of these things that you talk about are really kind of come down to this like unlearning of these like negative messaging that we've been given by society and, the patriarchy. And I don't know if that's cheesy to say, but I feel like it's fair. Um, so I guess, I think that a lot of women are kind of, they have these kind of awakenings kind of later in life, or, if they're lucky, like teens. But I mean, for me, I really didn't start to think about this stuff until after college. And I mean, my sexual awakening as college was not was it was a mess. So, and by that point, I know a lot of people may be in relationships, they may be married. So for someone who is having this awakening and, they've never done masturbation before, or like they've never had these conversations with themselves or their partner, and they suddenly want to talk about it with their partner, but their partner isn't actually receptive to that. I guess, how would you, what advice would you give for navigating that dynamic?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, actually, and very difficult because, you know, we're always growing and evolving. And if you're with a partner, then ideally you want them to grow and evolve with you. And it's difficult when they are not on that same path, and you're having this awakening and they're just not there. They're not there. I think, for me, one of the things that I found really useful was listening to lots of podcasts and resonating with them, or books, and just going, oh my God, yes, that explains it so well. So I'm going to pass this over to my partner, because listening to it from somebody else is sometimes easier for them to hear than coming from you, because you just, your voice just drowns out, and they don't actually listen to it. So that's quite handy. I think therapy is always a good idea as well, if you can afford it. But there's also, you know, one of the great things about lockdown is that there's lots of online support that you can get. Shrimp Teeth is one of the ones, peer-to-peer support, that you can get some support with just how to speak to your partner and how to open up those conversations. And it's not such an expensive sort of exercise like therapy is. And yeah, get support, like speak to your friends, speak to other people, and just talk about it. I think communication is definitely the key. It always is. So yeah, just trying to convey how you're feeling as quickly, as honestly, and as succinctly as you can. And you know what? Not everyone is going to be on board. So sometimes it's okay to outgrow people and move on and change. It happens, it's life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I guess they do say that the sign of a healthy relationship is that you can change and grow together. Um, so speaking of all of that, do you have like any favorite sex toys that you would really recommend to people getting into it once they've, you know, passed that beginner stage? Maybe with like a partner? Is this an appropriate question to ask?
Absolutely fine. So my favorite solo toy is the Lelo Sonar, and that is what they call it. Basically, it's a clitoral suction, and so it's for external use, and it just involves the clitoris. Absolutely mind-blowing. It can be quite strong, so make sure you keep it on the lowest setting when you first start off using it. But yeah, if you want a really quick orgasm, then this is the job. This is the one for you. Now, a really good one to use for partner play is it's a Lelo again, and it's called the Soraya. That is for internal and external use. So it works on both your G-spot and your clitoris. And again, it's absolutely brilliant. They're my two favorites. I've also got a necklace that is from Love Crave, and that is a secret vibrator that I can take around with me and no one knows. So that's very handy. It just looks like a piece of joy. It's beautiful.
So what do you wish that you knew about masturbation when you were younger?
Good question. I think the main overriding thing was to know that it was okay. It was okay to do, to know that it was normal. I wasn't a freak, or I wasn't going to go blind, or, you know, the police weren't going to knock on my door and come and arrest me. It would have taken away so much shame and heartache and, yeah, feeling dirty. I just feel really quite sad for that child who thought like that, because I could have had a lot of fun. um, yeah, I think that's the main overriding feeling, just that it's okay. I mean, you know, what else can you do that's that much fun, that's free? It's like, it helps with your mental health, it helps you sleep. There's so many benefits to masturbation, it's unreal. So, you know, why aren't we taught that in school? You know, I really feel like a lot of things could have been solved if we were just told, you know, the real truth about masturbation and the benefits to females.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really like that masturbation, like, you know, it's a you thing. Like no one else is in control. You're the one in
Mm,
control of what's happening in
mm,
your body. And I feel like that's a really powerful thing to be able to do. And maybe
absolutely.
one of the underlying reasons why it's considered so taboo, because it really puts the power to feel good in your own hands as opposed to being reliant on somebody else, right?
Yeah. Well, I feel like, you know, the predominant, you know, thinking is that women's sexuality is to be controlled, and the reason why we haven't been empowered to take control of our own sexuality is because it's scary for them. When we have our own sexuality in our own hands, then that's a very, very scary prospect for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that while maybe that line of thinking isn't like said verbatim all the time anymore, it's still an underlying attitude, right? Like that attitude,
Absolutely.
that way of thinking is still present, even though they might not feel like they can say it anymore, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's what kind of gets me. I feel like a lot of people, when we talk about these kinds of attitudes, they're like, well, it doesn't exist anymore because it's not talked about. But, you know, we can tell, right?
The thing is even though it's not overtly expressed anymore, in so many tiny little insidious ways, we know that that's the overarching thinking. And, you know, there's so many examples of that. And, you know, just from telling girls what to wear and, you know, shamed in front of a classroom of people because their skirts are too short or their tops are too low is, you know, we are scared of the power of women and what they can do if they had the power in their own hands. But just those little microaggressions, you know, show us that they are definitely still trying to control us and trying to shame us into submissiveness all the time, even though overtly they say we're equal. We're
Yeah,
not.
I had a when I was younger, I had a figure in my life who I talked on occasion about this kind of stuff, and she was very well meaning, and at one point she told me that I couldn't use vibrators because it would ruin my vagina, that it would just like totally ruin my nerve endings and I'd never be able to appreciate like regular sex again. And I feel like there are all of these myths like that are abound. And even people who are like so well meaning, they're not trying to oppress you, they're not trying to like give you the wrong information, but you know, have you had experiences like that? Have you come across like crazy myths like that?
Absolutely. And by the way, just to clarify, vibrators will not mess up your vagina or your vulva. They are completely fine to use. Obviously, as I said, I would recommend using your hand first, but explore away. I remember when I was a kid being told that I couldn't use a Tampax because that would make me not a virgin anymore. And it would break my hymen. And I mean, again, you know, the concept of being a virgin is a social construct and completely, you know, just such a tool to, again, to control us and to keep us from being sexual. And yeah, there's just so many myths out there. I once did a question, I asked that question on social media, and one of the girls said her friends at school said that if she said that she'd masturbated, and they said that she was then a lesbian because she'd touched herself. And another one said that they were told they'll go blind if they touch themselves. And yeah, it's just, yeah, so many like myths and fallacies out there that it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that's absolutely intentional as well. You know, that definitely didn't just happen. And, you know, the same goes for, I think, shame. Like, shame is not something you're born with, it's taught, right?
Yeah.
So, all
Yeah.
of these incidents, I'm sure, you know, really, really build up. And I mean, for me, like, I don't particularly enjoy looking at my body. And I think that a lot of women feel the same way. And I don't know if that's actually what we would feel that like if we were, you know, if we had a better sex education system, or, you know, if we
Absolutely.
had all of these little pokes as we develop in those, you know, really pivotal years.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, I just remember yesterday I texted my friend. I was taking pictures of myself yesterday in swimwear, and I texted my friend and I said, "Is it really bad that I actually want to fuck myself?" I was like, "You look so hot in these pictures." How often do you hear women say that about themselves?
I've
You know.
literally never heard that. And I love it though. Like, it's really great. It's awesome.
I was like, damn, girl, like, seriously, I would totally do you. And I just think it's so bashed out of us to like the look of ourselves, to think that we look good, you know, from very, very early age. Everything is telling us to hate ourselves, to hate our bodies. And it's a multi-billion-pound business, you know. If we hate ourselves, then we're going to buy things to try and make ourselves better, even though they don't work. You know, so every tiny little message we're receiving from the moment we start breathing as women is all about: don't like yourself, don't think that you're good, don't, you know, think that you're powerful. We are giving these little messages every single second of the day.
Yeah, I guess, wow, like so many things to unpack here. I love it. In today's kind of like 2020 coronavirus, Black Lives Matter, people are really waking up. They should have woken up before, but now they are. And it seems like we're in this like we're entering into this new era of consciousness. And like within that, there's a lot of talk about, you know, what protest looks like, what resistance looks like. And I think it really that conversation spans across like all of these issues that society is facing. And I feel like loving yourself is also an act of resistance. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feed into commercialism and the 60 billion in the US. It's $60 billion a year, diet industry. It's absolutely an act of activism. You know, we can all be activists in our own little way. You know, sometimes people are given quite a lot of shit because there's the term slacktivism, which is just jumping on a bandwagon when that's what's happening on social media, and I get that, but I still think, you know, whatever you believe in, whatever your thoughts are, I think encouraging other people to think is the best thing that you can do, and promoting conversation, and also acknowledging that you don't always get it right, and that you can get it wrong, and that you can also learn and change and grow and make mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, can we circle back to this amazing statement that you made earlier about how you just wanted to fuck yourself? And I just like, I can't get over it. Like, I really want to like spend some time on that. Like, it's awesome. And I just really would love to know how like other people who aren't there yet can get to that point. I think everybody watching this is going to be like, yes, I want to feel that way too. You know what I mean? And I think it's, you know, very evident from everything that you've told me and from what you've said online that, you know, it didn't just happen like that. Like, this has been like a journey for you. Am I right?
Absolutely, yeah. I think, you know, the first time when I made a committed effort to really change my mentality was when I had my children. That was definitely the impetus that I needed to change my thinking. I didn't want to be brought up and bring my children up hating themselves, looking in the mirror, picking all the tiny little detail, being on a diet their whole life, weighing themselves every single day and being fucking miserable. Because let's face it, a lot of us are. And, you know, so much of our thinking goes up into how much we weigh, what our bodies look like, and what we look like generally. And I think as women, especially, we are taught to get validation from outside sources. And, you know, that's the thing that I'm trying to really encourage, is that finding that validation from within. And it's not easy. It's not like this. It definitely doesn't go like this. But just talking, reading books, you know, books like The Beauty Myth, Body Posy Panda's book, activists like Florence Given, The Slum Flower. All of these people have been hugely inspiring to me. Most of them are a lot younger than me. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You can learn from every single person. And in fact, my children are my biggest teachers. But it's just making the commitment to do the work. And it's not going to be easy. And it's going to be confronting and painful and difficult. But if you really want to do it, you can do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that there are a lot of different opinions on the body positivity movements and the body neutrality movements. A lot of people say it's maybe not in my wheelhouse or not possible to love my body. And that's why they're kind of moving away from this body positivity to this idea of body neutrality. And
Right.
I guess so within that conversation, then where do you think that masturbation lies?
I mean, for me, they have both worked very much in tandem. I would say I've often said that my confidence has increased with every orgasm I've been able to give myself.
I was so gonna quote you. That's going on a graphic.
So yeah, they very much work in tandem. You're completely right. But if we go back to the body positivity and the body neutrality, those kind of terms that people are struggling with at the moment, I would never use the term for myself, body positivity. I'm not that kind of influencer. People use it a lot about me. But first of all, I am a very average sized woman. And, you know, I definitely fall within the kind of accepted norms of how women are viewed, are supposed to look. And you know, body positivity was started by Black women who were fat, a lot bigger than me. And I would never want to take up space in that area. I think for me, the labels and body neutrality, I don't know, it feels a little bit benign for me. I think that labels can be quite tricky, but people do like them. But I just talk about body confidence, and it doesn't matter really what we call it, but if I can encourage people to get to know themselves better, to have a better relationship with themselves, to want to fuck themselves, to actually, you know, invest time and energy into the relationship that they have with themselves, then you can call me or it whatever you like.
Absolutely. I think that's really good to know. And you know, as a side note, I'm not to go too deep into a rabbit hole, but I think it's really interesting what you just said about how body positivity was started by a Black woman. And you know, I've seen all these conversations happening on Instagram. I don't think that's ever been mentioned in any of these conversations that a lot of white influencers are having. That says a lot, I think, about.
Yeah, it does. And also, it says a lot about who the big body positive Instagrammers are, because a lot of them aren't anywhere near fat. A lot of them are very white. And it's just funny how people say that they're body positive or appear to be supporters of the body positivity movement, yet the people that they follow are only the palatable body positive people. And they're not the people who are really challenging you and really, you know, making you think about your values and your inherent bias. And yeah, that's why I think it's really good to break out of your normal sort of shell or cocoon of surrounding yourself with people who look like you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this also speaks to like how even masturbation, right? Like it's all interconnected with all of these different issues with feminism, with race, you know, with everyone's different experiences. And so I think that speaks really perfectly to, you know, why intersectional feminism is like the only feminism that should be.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So going back to masturbation. I know a lot of readers, I know I feel this way sometimes, may have trouble like getting their engine going. I feel like sometimes it's a mental thing, maybe it's for other reasons. Do you have any advice for people kind of struggling with that?
You know what, I've always likened masturbation to meditation. It's very similar for me because you know, in order to reach orgasm, you have to be very mindful that you can't have lots of other things in your head at that time because it just won't happen. And that's difficult sometimes. Clearing your mind and allowing there to be space to actually reach orgasm can be tricky. One thing to mention, orgasm is not the sole purpose of masturbating. Not everyone reaches orgasm, not everyone can reach orgasm. So try not to think that that's the prize at the end of the whatever, that kind of thing.
The rainbow.
Yeah.
It's not the rainbow.
It's not the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So my advice would be to take that pressure off yourself, first of all. Go in with the mindset that you're just exploring, you're just having a little bit of fun. There's no end goal, you know. And sometimes, yeah, just have a little play without thinking it has to go anywhere. Because, yeah, remember, you're not a man, so you know it doesn't have to have this crescendo at the end.
Yeah.
There's still lots of pleasure to be had with just playing.
I do think it's kind of like a luxury to not just have that, because I feel like men, okay, they come and then that's it, but for women we have like a lot of more room to explore, and I feel like that's a really nice luxury that we have, that maybe it doesn't feel that way all the time, but
Yeah.
you know, when you can get into it, is kind of fun, because I feel like there's definitely more room for different and exciting stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, you don't have any pressure on yourself, so please don't put that pressure on you, and don't and that's another sort of misogynistic thinking, isn't it, that it has to happen this way. It absolutely doesn't. And yeah, just basically have fun. Don't, if it becomes a chore, if it becomes hard work, then you don't have to do it. But yeah, some of the things I would suggest, I mean, have you heard of I love a danger wank. I don't know if you've heard of that term.
No, what is it?
A danger wank. So basically it is when you nip off into somewhere and masturbate with and you're could easily get caught.
Oh, okay.
So that's what I call a danger wank. But in terms of getting yourself into the right headspace, that would just be about making yourself comfortable, making sure that you are safe and secure. And sometimes, you might need some stimulus, some added stimulus. So there's lots of porn out there. There's lots of ethical porn. There's lots of feminist porn, porn that you can watch that features people who look like you and who aren't pretending to enjoy it when they're clearly not. So yeah, there's lots of different things you can do. Have you listened to the podcast, The Butterfly Effect?
No, I haven't.
Very good podcast about porn and the whole like far-reaching, how it all works. It's really interesting. And like Pornhub and YouPorn, and there's another one. They're all owned by the same person. And it's just, it's mind-blowing.
That's
really good podcast.
Okay, we'll listen to it. Okay, so I always ask people this question because this is something I'm personally really interested in, and I think it's one of those things that again isn't really talked about that much. And I guess so. I want to know when you feel most powerful, because I feel like that's a feeling that is really hard to obtain.
What a good question. When do I feel most powerful? I think just when I'm doing anything that I love, just when I'm in my, what's the term, mode of genius. I just enjoy the conversations. I feel incredibly passionate about it. I feel like I have something that I can pass on to other people. So yeah, moments like this when I enjoy talking to you about a really great subject that means a lot to me, that is incredibly close to my heart, and that will hopefully help other people. That's when I feel most powerful.
Yeah, for sure. I think that there is like a lot of really great stuff when it comes to self-esteem and that kind of stuff when you're kind of like looking outside your own interests. That's at least what I learned. And that's honestly like why Restless has been so helpful for me personally, because like it really helped me be like, okay, let me make it less about me. And I think that's actually, it's ironic that that mindset shift really helps you to actually feel more powerful yourself.
Yeah, and that's really great. I'm glad that you're getting that that feeling from doing something that you love. That's fantastic.
Well, thank you so much for speaking to me. I really enjoyed this, and I think that tons of people are going to find this so helpful and interesting. Thanks so much.